is up, guys? Shaddix here, and welcome back to another video where today I have something just a little bit different for you guys. It would seem like a short I made about ranking the Legends Arceus ride Pokemon has been doing pretty good, and you guys seem to really enjoy that style of content, so I thought I'd go ahead and rank every single ride Pokemon in all of the Pokemon games for you guys. So first we have Ride Tauros, and I think that's got to be A tier. It's essentially your bike in the game it's in, and I think same with Lapras, but Stoutland, I don't want to put it in F because it is useful. You can find use, you can find items with it. It's kind of like Ursaluna in that sense, but it's not the best. And these aren't really in any decent order, but again, we have Lapras, allows you to get through all the water routes. It's just about as useful as any other bike or anything. And then we have Skidoo and Go-Go, which I'm going to put in B tier because they're not as useful as a bike like these ones up here in that sense. However, they are pretty useful in the certain areas you're allowed to use them. Although I think Go-Go is more of a bike than Skidoo is. I think Skidoo can only be used in like the farmland area. And then I think we're going to go ahead and put Rhyhorn right underneath those because it's still useful to get through some routes, but it's kind of exclusively used in those rocky routes. Kind of like Mudsdale here, actually. And I think Machamp would also be suited for that because it's useful for getting into places, but you can only use it in certain areas, so it's kind of useless in that sense. And then we have Sharpedo. I think we're going to go ahead and toss Sharpedo into A tier with some of the other like faster ride Pokemon or the water Pokemon. And then we have Charizard Fly, which I'm actually going to put ahead of the water Pokemon, but not of Tauros, because you still only need Charizard to fly to certain areas, so it's a lot more useful for transversing than the water type Pokemon, but Tauros can pretty much be used everywhere, so I think Tauros is still better there. Alright, and then we have Mamaswine, which is more of a utility Pokemon like these four here in the C tier. I feel bad for having Stoutland down there, but you know what, I just can't put him any higher. Alright, and then we have Braviary. I think Braviary is actually gonna go into S tier, I think. It's super useful and super fast. It's useful in literally every single area in the Legends Arceus games. And it's really good for shiny hunting, and you guys know I'm an avid shiny hunter. I don't think Weird Ear is good enough to put into S tier, but it is good enough to put ahead of Tauros here, I think. Just because it's useful in every single area, and you don't have to like call out the ride pager. You can kind of switch between them as needed. That and Basculegion, which I think is going to go right below it. And I hate to do this. Ursaluna's great. It's worse than Stoutland, I think. Just because in Legends Arceus, I don't really see a use for a Pokemon like Ursaluna. And then, I don't know how many people are going to like this, but Sneasler is going into F tier. I can't tell you when I have seriously used Sneasler as something that Sneasler does, like climbing up mountains, after you unlock Braviary. Once you get Braviary, Sneasler is entirely useless. Alright, now we're going to start breaking into the Let's Go games, and there are a ton of ride Pokemon here to get through. Some are definitely better than others. Starmie is F tier. I don't even understand why that even works. If it was in the water, it'd be fine. It's not in the water, though. It's on land. And I think Haunter, I'm going to put in D because it's a ghost type, so I still kind of don't understand it, but it makes more sense than Starmie at least. Now, Aerodactyl, I'm going to put into A tier below everything else, because even though it's useful for getting around buildings and stuff, there's still certain buildings you just can't go over without, like, loading the area and going through something. And that goes for Dragonite as well, and for Charizard. They're all really nice. They're all just about the same amount of usefulness, though. They're still really useful, but really having to go through certain areas because you can't load them, like, I think you can't go through Viridian Forest, or fly over it, you have to go through it entirely, so that kind of sucks. Onix, I'm gonna put into C tier, at the bottom of C tier, because these are still, like, useful in-game. Riding on it is cool, but we're not basing it off of, you know, how cool they are, because riding on an Onix is absolutely sick. But we're basing it off of how useful they are, and just about anything else, it kind of falls like right in the middle because you can ride it along routes, but it's not crazy fast, so I don't know. Because there's things like Rapidash and Persian here that are going to go into B tier because they're pretty fast. You still have to like go through doors and stuff, which kind of makes them not as great, I guess, because there are some doors that you can get over using the flying Pokemon that you can't really get over using these faster Pokemon. I think B tier is where we're going to put the faster Pokemon that allow you to get around pretty quickly. Alright, and I think Lapras is gonna go right up here with the flying ones, because it's essentially the exact same thing, except it's just with water, and it's one of the few water Pokemon you can ride on in the water, right up there with, actually, we're gonna toss Gyarados into here as well. It's just not as useful as the flying Pokemon, because you can fly right over the water and avoid everything. I think Kangaskhan is gonna go right behind Onix, only because it's about the same usefulness, but Onix is just so much cooler, and, funny, so that's where he's going. Alright, so now we're coming up to Dodrio, and I think Dodrio is going to be on the same on the same level as Rapidash here, and Persian. Rhydon, not that great, gonna go behind Kangaskhan Arcanine. I'm gonna put it at the top of C tier. I don't want to put it in B tier, and I know what you're thinking, it's fast, but it's big is the problem. So it's constantly popping in and out of its Pokeball, which is really the only reason that I don't like using Arcanine. Other than that, Arcanine is still really good though, so it's going to go to right to the top of C tier. And then we have Machamp, that's going to be another C tier. These are all the same usefulness, really, except Onix is just cooler. And then we have Rhyhorn in this game as well. It's a lot slower than these Pokemon, if I do so remember, so it's going to go into C tier as well. And then we have Tauros, which is going to go into the B tier, faster Pokemon. It's not as big as Arcanine though, so I do think it gets a little bit of a boost as opposed to Arcanine. Now we have a lot of the weird ones. In fact, this is where the last category here comes into play. I haven't mentioned this yet because we haven't come across any, but HM stands for honorable mentions, and that's where pretty much all of these are going to go, and I'm going to explain why, except for this one. Latias and Latios go into S tier because it allows you to get through the entire Hoenn map and get to other places to get legendaries, other Pokemon, and you have full control over where you go with them, so it's actually really, really nice. Whereas some of these other Pokemon, like Mantine, you can only go to one specific place at a time, really, and it's more of a mini-game, right? And then Corvinite Fly, I don't even know if that's a real Corviknight, but it's got Corviknight in the name. And then Lunala and Solgaleo, I think is how you pronounce it, I always mess that one up, are about on the same ranking as Mantine. Really, they're useful for getting Pokemon, but you can only really use them in one instance. And then obviously we have the 3 Pokemon in the cutscenes from the Oros games. You technically ride them, but you have no control over what you're doing. It's a cutscene, so honorable mention, of course. Now we have the 2 odd ones you guys are probably curious about. This is an honorable mention because this is a Rotom bike. Technically speaking, it's a Rotom. It's a bike, but it is a Pokemon at the same time. It's kind of weird. I didn't know where to put this one, so I thought it would just go best in the honorable mention slot. And then this stands for any Pokemon that can learn the Fly or Surf TM, or HM, depending on what games you're playing. Obviously, they did away with these when it came to the newer games and you had Ride Pagers and Call Pokemon and whatever it's called. But this is just for every Pokemon, basically anything that's water type that could learn Surf, or anything with wings that could learn Fly. So that about does it for my tier list on ranking every single Pokemon that you can ride in the Pokemon games specifically. We're not doing anime. I am not I'm not versed enough in that to be able to make a cohesive video, so I apologize. Let me know what you guys think. Is there anything in this tier list that you guys would change? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next video. Peace.